Welcome to Moments with Rozarte, the podcast that shares inspiring stories of successful individuals and organizations from around the world. Today, we have Hanna Lemma, a feminist researcher, women's rights advocate, and founder of Addis Powerhouse, which is a young women-led feminist knowledge production platform that provides a safe space for young people to access resources on feminism and social justice. Hanna's inspiring work has been featured in UNWomen as well as Global Heroes. We are honored to have her here on Moments with Rozarte podcast today to share her journey with us. Enjoy the episode. Can you tell me a little about yourself and your background?
Yes, sure. So my name is Hanna Lemma. I am a feminist researcher and also a women's rights advocate based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Beyond that, I am the founder of a young women-led feminist knowledge production platform called Addis Powerhouse. So what we basically do is try to engage the youth with, educational reading materials that would help them understand what the gender dynamics is and what gender equality can look like in the future, or how they can contribute to it in their own little ways. So yeah, that's what I do. And
So how did you first become interested in feminist writing and research?
So it was a very long time ago, honestly. So there was not a clear, okay, this is what I want to do. But instead it was something that developed into feminist writing and research. Because for me, as long as I can remember, even in high school, I used to love writing. So even though it was not particularly feminist writing, or if it did not include, gender equality related terms, it was about, our social life and everything. So by the time I graduated from high school and started college and started studying economics, it became apparent that I was really interested in research and also gender equality. So I learned all of this in campus. And by the time I graduated from that, I was already partly engaged in internships and other small work engagements that supported my feminist writing and research. And a lot of feminist writing for me is actually feminist reading and making sure that you have some time to sit with that knowledge and, understand the context and how that applies to the life you're currently living or the context that you're in. Because most of the feminist writing that we have in Ethiopia comes from either other African countries or the Western world. Although there is a bias that, like most of the feminist reading that we do comes from the Western world. But I do love African feminism and African feminist books. And that's mostly what encouraged me to, really enjoy that process of feminist reading, feminist writing, and also research. But also within the feminist advocacy, you don't see a lot of evidence-based activism. So I made sure that with Addis Powerhouse, we use feminist research and feminist, evidence collection for our activism. And that has worked out for us thus far. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. I love the work that you do.
Thank you. It takes a lot of time, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It probably, how many years have you been doing
Uh,
this?
I think since 2020, it has officially become Addis Powerhouse, but since 2017, we used to have this small blog called Feminist Front. But that was a bit, like we were all young and, well, younger than we are now. And we were, we had a very open blog submission so that every young feminist can contribute to it. And there were not a lot of, blog segment stuff particularly focused on feminism back then. So it was, yeah, it came a long way, definitely.
Wow, that's great. That's really great.
Yeah.
So what is the most important issue facing women today, in your opinion?
I think I do feel like that's a very large question, considering, women is not really a homogeneous group the way I see it, because issues facing an Ethiopian women and issues facing a woman living in the West or in other parts of the African continent even could be different. For me, the biggest problem or some of the most important issues facing women today in Ethiopia would be, conflict-related gender-based violence, which is not only limited to weaponized rape, but also other forms of abuse that have to do with psychological, economic, political oppression. So that's something that's largely faces Ethiopian women, but also when you come to the capital Addis or other cities within Ethiopia that have not been majorly affected by conflict, our issues might be also slightly different, considering that we have access to information, we have access to social media platforms that, at first it was great because we had somewhere to really amplify our activism work, but towards sometime closer now, a lot of Western influence can be, observed with, those alpha male podcasts, those,
Yes.
so
Oh,
those
yes.
things are, like taking us back a bit and demonizing feminism. So it also causes a lot of problem to our work. But when it comes to the African continent in general, there are, certain themes that are similar across the continent with regards to conflict, with regards to humanitarian need that usually falls, disproportionately on the backs of women. And there are also economic issues because of the capitalism that's, we have to adopt, and that's, growing at large, that leaves a lot of women behind to do the, a lot of burden falls on women's backs. And that's something that we have to struggle with, and that's something that's coming as of our recent past. But yeah, I'm not sure if I can speak for women at large in the world, but that's what I can tell you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, what are some common misconceptions would you say that you've encountered, and like how do you address them in your work?
There are a lot, honestly speaking, and they always, shift. And it depends on who you're talking to, whether it's your girlfriends or your family or someone that had stayed longer within society. So within our society in Ethiopia, the biggest misconception that we face with regards to feminism is that it's a Western import, which is not true, because we've had feminist leaders way before, colonization in Ethiopia. So I don't think that's true, and that's something that we try to advocate for by, putting this woman's history or her story in the front of our social media activism for people to see and think, okay, so this is what we used to be, but now we've come back, we're walking backwards, for them to realize that. Apart from that, there are so many others, like how it goes against our religion, against our culture, against our family values. But all of these things are based on the fear and the protection of what we think we already have, what we revere so much as society. And so much of that fear comes from our understanding of culture, which is static. But in reality, culture is a moving thing, culture grows, culture changes, and it's supposed to, serve you and not the other way around. And we try so much in our work in Addis Powerhouse to promote this, to show people that, like, instead of instigating fear and hatred, we can cultivate, progress towards equality, and how that can benefit men as well. Patriarchy also oppresses men, and men, since they have somewhat some privilege, they do not think of how it affects them, this patriarchy. But we try to, highlight men's mental health issues and other effects of the patriarchy on men, so that, they understand feminism is not about women's supremacy, but it's about equality for both sexes, and then, they benefit from it as well. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, I understand what you mean, because some people think feminism is only sort of, they see the extreme part of it that's always highlighted in social media in a very bad way and painted in a very horrible way. So yes,
Yeah,
I understand what you mean.
definitely.
So
And with social media and everything, the fight even gets stronger because, there are so many groups that come up with new theories in how feminism is the evil.
Yes. Tell me about it. I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
these. So, what advice would you give to young women who are interested in pursuing a career in feminist research and writing?
Uh, it would be to read feminist books. And when we were younger, we didn't really have access to African feminist writing, especially for women who come from Africa and different parts of the regions. And I would suggest reading books from, feminist writers like Sylvia Tamale from Uganda, because that really, I don't know how to put it, but like we usually try to stick with Black feminist writers from the US, but there are also a lot of resources in Africa that also cover the economic reality, the colonialist reality, the patriarchal reality that's only specific to your continent. So I would suggest wherever you're from, wherever part of the world, that you start from your continent or your country so that you have the most context into what you're trying to change. And then, like growing it to the rest of the world, because the more you know, the better, but it's always best to start from your own. So that's what I would suggest. As long as you read, I feel like you can write already. And yeah, the basis for feminist research and writing would be reading feminist works.
Nice, perfect. I would also be taking your advice and start reading so I can get used to the ideas and learn new things. Perfect.
Of course, I would share some books and
Thank you
resources.
very much. So, what resources would you recommend for women who are struggling with their mental health,
I do
if
not,
there are
I
any?
really, yeah, of course. Of course, when we say mental health, I feel like there is a diversity and there is also a severity that we need to be aware of. And for me, I do not feel as though I have the expertise to talk on this, but we have covered some mental health issues in our Addis Powerhouse newsletters. And I do, when you asked me this question, I was thinking like I do see the bias, because when we talk about mental health, we tend to focus on men's mental health because we feel like women's mental health is already, covered for with all the, I don't know, with all the social engagement that we do. We have friends, we talk to our friends, so we talk to our family, and we're very, critical in how we assess how we're doing and our progress, our limitations as well. So I feel like there is this bias that we have come to when we talk about mental health, that we usually focus on men's mental health because that's the part that we think is neglected. So I thought this question was very interesting because it got me to think, like, what would I recommend to women, for women? And I mean, I do not consider myself, like I said, as an expert, but it usually helps to, like sit with yourself. And it's not just something that I would say to a woman, it's and with anyone, for anyone who is, like mildly struggling with their mental health, even if that has to do with work, with social life and everything. It's to sit with yourself and, take time to really understand what you're going through, to listen to your emotions, and to see like what has been bothering me, what's not working out for me, how can I better myself, and what has happened to me for me to be influenced in this way. So it has a lot to do with listening to yourself and, observing how you can be there for yourself better, because at the end of the day, we should get ourselves before we seek anything externally. I do believe that. But at the end of the day, I also recommend getting psychological therapy support in order to, be as healthy as you can be in your mental states.
What are some of the challenges you faced in your own mental health journey? And how have you worked to overcome them?
For me, something that I usually struggle with have to do with work, with my work and my line of profession. Um, when you do feminist activism on your day-to-day basis, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of trauma, like secondhand trauma that you have to deal with. And then there's a difference between, I always hear this, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, and that you cannot take the pain home as much as you don't take your work home. So that's some boundary that takes a while to learn. So I do struggle with that. And there's also a lot of workload. We still live in a capitalist system that wants you to produce 24/7. So you also have to be able to manage your time, because nobody tells you to manage the amount of work you're taking in. You only have to manage your time. But I'm trying, this thing to like saying no to even things that look like opportunities or that present as opportunities, as long as I don't have time for them, because I should be looking out for me as long as the work is done, as long as I'm here. So that's the mindset that I'm trying to embody at the moment in order to, take care of my mental health. And yeah, it has been working out okay. And with the workload that I already have, I try to, give myself some time to be with myself, to be with the people that I love, to vent, and, to get back to my normal self outside of work. Because like I said, with this line of work, it gets really blurred which part of it is your work and which part of it is your life, because our lives are already so interconnected, and you start caring, and it's not like, it's not like you're working with things that you don't feel attached to. So it's really difficult, but it's a day-to-day work, and I do believe I'm doing it. Yeah.
That's wonderful. There are a lot of insights from what you told me just now. So, how do you think mental health should be addressed in feminist activism and advocacy in general?
I think what's happening so far on social media, what we observe is really good, because we didn't really used to hear that much about it. And the fact that we're hearing so much about it normalizes some of the things that used to be stigmatized in the past. And I'm really proud of that as a generation, that we've come so far. And I think that's a huge progress. Some of the things that I said before and that I'm going to repeat is, we usually focus on men's mental health when it comes to feminist activism and advocacy on mental health. And I do think there is a problem with that, because women also struggle with mental health. It's not just about the close friendships that you keep and that you talk to. It doesn't mean that you're completely healthy. So I think there is a need to focus on that as well. And the problem that I see with men's mental health advocacy, some problems that I see, particularly in Ethiopia and other African contexts, is that it's usually feminist women that advocate for men's mental health. And I never understood this, because, as men, as people who, as a group that have went through it, or who have seen their friends go through it, men should be the ones to take up the forefront of the men's mental health activism, but it's the other way around. And I do fear that most of that comes from this fear that, feminists are man haters, and feminists don't care about men's emotions. They don't care about how men turn out to be, as long as their rights are protected. We always hear this, and I think we try to compensate for that by advocating for mental health really strongly, even more than men do. And I think there is a need to reflect on that, and to make sure that we have male allies that also promotes men's mental health, as much as we do. Yeah.
Perfect. So it needs to be a group effort, and always not just one gender has to advocate for one and all. I understand. Perfect.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to lately, both personally and professionally?
Well, professionally, I have been trying to grow at this Powerhouse. So as I've mentioned before, we are a young women-led feminist knowledge production platform. So we make sure to recruit new young women who can bring something new to the table, who can learn more from us, and who can also, like share resources with other young women so that we can create a network of young feminists in Ethiopia. So that's what we've been up to, and it's a really exciting journey. And we also have a couple of projects running, particularly focused on the conflicts in Ethiopia and how women are being affected, and how, we can amplify each other's voices. So yeah, these are some of the things that we've been doing. And most of the work that I do professionally I believe it has to contribute to Addis Powerhouse and to young feminists in Ethiopia, because, it's not, like being young is not an infinite thing. And at some point I do realize that I have to move on to other things and make sure that Addis Powerhouse is in safe hands within young women. So there's a lot of work that I need to do now. And that's why I've been focusing most of my professional contribution to Addis Powerhouse. Personally, it's, like looking out for my mental health, honestly, constantly, because my professional work, I do believe, contributes to a lot of trauma and a lot of struggle. So I make sure personally that I look out for myself, for my mental health, and that I cultivate the personal developments and some like taking up hobbies that I usually do, like writing about other things other than feminism, and sketching and doing yoga, doing all of the things that, contribute to me so that I can contribute to my professional life. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
That's nice. Taking time off for yourself is also very important, because
Very.
when you live in a fast-paced life of 9 to 5s and more work dedications, and personal life also gets in the way. So it's good to take time off.
It definitely is. I agree. Yeah.
So what's your favorite place to go to when you need to like relax or unwind?
I used to say that traveling is not just, without, it's also within. So my favorite place to go, if I'm at my best, would be within myself, trying to understand things that, about myself, and trying to connect with the bigger goal, which, once you get caught up in this life, you forget about. So like meditating and doing yoga and all of these things, they help me travel within, I do believe. So that's one of my favorite places to go when I need to relax and unwind. But I also like traveling, going to new places, and yeah, like discovering new hangout spots, new worlds, new countries. That's my favorite thing to do. It's been a while since I traveled, but I do look forward to, seeing new places and yeah, discovering new adventures. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so what's something you're looking forward to in the near future?
Huh. I honestly really like the place I'm in at the moment. And it's not like to say I don't have my milestones for the future where I'm going. We have that, yeah. As like professionally, personally, we have
Yes.
milestones that we want to reach. But at the moment, I'm really satisfied with where I am, with the progress that I'm making, and with, even though it's not as easy as as it seems, it's nice to identify with where you are and to just, collect yourself there. So I wouldn't say there's something that I'm looking forward to in the near future, because, this feels like the future that I've looked forward to for a very long time. And I want to sit with this at the moment. There is this Rupikor quote, yeah, I think she posted it recently, that I'm not going to find this version of myself anytime soon. So I'm going to sit with her. So
Is
yeah,
it
I
is it
feel
the
like,
one
yeah.
about her in her 20s? I think.
About aging?
Yes.
No,
I
it's
think I've
not that
seen
one. It's about I'm not gonna find this version of myself again. So I'm gonna sit with her at the moment. So it's a very short quote, but it resonates with me so much, because at some point I stopped, being so obsessed with what's happening next, that I stopped living in this current life. So yeah, that's where I am.
Nice. Amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
I really enjoyed it as well. It's helped me reflect, so thank you so much.
Hopefully we will get to see you more on Rozarte.
Of course, I would love that. I would make time.
Thank you.